Today I'm going to start the process of taking off the trailing arms, which involves taking off the half shafts and the not stabilizer bar, but the, oh heck, I can't remember what those things are called. Those bars that they really determine the camber of the rear axle. They are connected to a concentric hole over there, and what you do is by turning that bolt, it moves that rod in or out, which affects the camber. But the first thing we're going to do, and that's connected actually to the shock mount. Shock mount's what holds it in. So we're going to start with removing that, which it is attached with, of course, a cotter pin, a castle nut, straight as possible, so you pull them out. This one on the right side, I'm pretty sure has been removed because I think that the trailing arm was removed. And doggone it, I thought I had my tray of impact sockets over here, but I don't see them. I have to go get them. So that's a 15/16 nut that holds that on. And that shock nut, while it might look like it could rotate in this mount here of the mount for the spindle, it can't. There's a flat on it. And that prevents it from rotating. So you can't brake if this is rusted. And this apparently isn't too bad because I can spin it a little bit by hand. There's a tool that's made for this. It costs about 25 bucks, I think. And what you do is you put it on the end of that thread and then you beat on it with a hammer. Well, I don't have that tool. I have this. It is a regular standard pipe cap. Or a 3/8 pipe, iron pipe. Kind you would use for gas in a house, or I guess you could get the galvanized kind with the ancient type of water pipe. But you just put that on there and give it a whack. Boy, that was easier than I thought it would be. Usually you have to beat on them for a while. Now I'm going to get me a tool to loosen that cap on there now because I put it on so tight by hand I can't get it off. I was expecting to have to beat on that for a while. Anyways, this standard pipe, as soon as I touched it with the tool, it decided it wanted to come off easy. So that's $1.97. I bought 2 of them for $4.10 at Home Depot yesterday. Okay, and now you should be able to see the flat part there. And okay, I'm looking at the wrong end of it. This end has a flat part on it as well. Hopefully you can see that. Let me get it in front of the camera so that you can for certain see that. Let's back it off. Okay, there you can see the flat on it. That is only going to go in one way, and that's why you can't turn it to remove it, you know, because it's not meant to be turned. It has to be rigid for the shock. So, that was unexpectedly easy, and we will move on to the other part of the strut rod. Let's see what we need to take that off. Don't know if I'm going to need a wrench to hold it on the other side or not. Okay, that is a 3/4 inch socket. For the time being, what I'm going to do is just put my hand back here and see if I feel the other end of the bolt turning. And if it's not turning, I'll just take it off. If it is, I'll have to get a wrench. Okay, it felt like it wanted to turn a little bit, but it came off pretty easy. So, see if that's the same 3/4 on the other side. And I'm going to give you a demonstration of how this affects the, yeah, it is 3/4 on the other side. But I'm going to use just a ratchet. I'm going to zoom in there a little closer so you can see how when I turn the back end of that bolt, it will turn that big disc that you see there, and it will move the strut rod in or out. So as you move the lower part of the that strut rod, as you move it out, that increases positive camber. If you move it in, it will increase negative camber. You see how That's about as far as it'll go. Let me go back the other way. That bolt moved, and hopefully I'm getting a good picture on the camera because that strut rod's moving in and out. And actually, I'm going to stop the video and actually focus on the rotor there so that you can see what happens to it. So I just did a nice demonstration of how that moves that bottom of that steering knuckle in and out, and I forgot to have the camera running, so I get to do it again. So you're going to want to watch this and watch as I turn this, how this rotates and gets pushed out or in depending on which way I'm going. So that is pushing it out, and we can go back the other way and pull it back in. That wasn't good. Good thing I marked that yesterday so I know which stud it goes on. Let me check that jack stand, make sure it's not resting on something critical. So the rotor's back on, and this time I actually put a lug nut on it so that it can't fall off again. So if you have rotors that have been drilled out, that is a good point. Anyway, if you watch this, you can see as I turn this, this is at complete, just about as far as it can go, negative camber now. Okay, negative meaning the top of the wheel is pointing out. And the setting actually is for some positive camber. It's only like 1 degree or 3.5 or something like that. But to go from this negative camber situation to the positive, you just rotate this bolt the other way. And as you can see, it's tilting the rotor and all towards the outside. And once it gets past halfway, it comes back. So your max point is when this bolt is at 3 o'clock. And that makes sense because it's on a circle. So that's it for how you set the camber on the rear wheels. And this bolt has a bevel on the end of it, so you can actually pound on it. Get a little easier if I crank it more to the neutral position. I've already gone past the point of no return there. It came out easy the first time. To get the tool out again. Maybe it came out easy because the rock mount was out. Ain't that something? Came out easy the first time, now I've gotten it stuck back in there. I will just gently tap both of those bolts out. And we'll be back to where I was. A brass drift is a good tool to have because you can beat on it and it's softer than steel. So any damage that's done is done to the sacrificial brass drift. That's out. Let's see if this comes out easier now. No, not really. But again, I know why it's not coming out. I had this propped up with the jack stand and it was taking the tension off of it. That rotor falling off undid it for me. That's probably what most of the problem was. How about that? Comes right out. And then this little taps on it and it comes out. Like I said, I'm considering going with the hind joint style for ease of alignment. I believe them to be a little more sturdy and, well, firm, because these strut rounds have a rubber bushing in them and the hind joints do not. They have a metal ball. So that's how we're going to go there. I will attempt to do the other side now. And we'll video that as well and see how that video looks. Okay, we're going to take the left side shock mount off. Now this one, the rotor won't fall off because the rotor is still riveted on. So I don't have to worry about that. So there's the shock mount bolt. Take the cotter pin out of there. Grab that and move it down just a little bit with my pick. That one's going to fight me a little bit. This one I suspect hasn't been taken off as recently as the other side, if ever. So I got enough of that out to get the needle nose pliers on it. Tap those down and pull that out. socket. That is more like my experience with the 74. I had to get a breaker bar on this. For some reason my impact wrench seems a little bit weak. Wait a minute, maybe that seems to just click in better. Well, that made the impact wrench work better, but I still need to use a breaker bar on that and possibly a pipe. We'll see. Okay, got the breaker bar and a pipe for leverage. Let's see how this goes. I need the leverage. It is coming, but very slowly. Rock it back a little bit. Back and forth. Well, let's see now that it's broken loose whether the impact wrench will handle it. So, once it's loose, the impact wrench was up to the task. But now my concern is, how badly is this rusted in here? And how hard will it be to get it out? So, soaking it generously as possible with the blaster. Trying to locate my $1.97 pipe cap. Remove that $25 tool. Okay, time to shut off the camera so I can do a search. So I've got the cap on there. I happened to put my jack stand over top of it when I put it back up there. And it's time to start hitting it. Now, when I do this the first time, I put that as far on as I can, and that leaves me about 1/8 of an inch for movement. This is going to be a beast. What can happen with these is the metal bushing inside this strut rod can get rust welded to the shock mount. And sometimes the only thing you can do is cut them out. So far, I don't see any sign of movement. Well, not going to video a bunch of me beating on that. If I have to cut it out, I will probably video that. But it looks like that's going to take quite a while to beat that out of there because of it being rust welded on. So I've been beating on that for 4 or 5 minutes and it's not budging. And one of the things I was thinking of prior to coming down and doing this is I wondered if I disconnected at the other end and dropped that down, if I can put some rotational force on it as I'm beating it and maybe break that loose. So I am going to try that. See if that helps any. Like I always say, when you watch these videos, you get to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. So far this is just bad, it's not ugly yet. Okay, so that came off easily. I just need to get that out of there. Drift and knock that out the rest of the way out. As you can see, I did get some rotational force on it. The question is, am I just rotating the rubber or am I actually rotating the metal sleeve that's inside there? So that being rotated a little bit, I'll give it a couple more whacks. Get some. Got the camera focused on the wrong spot now, and you didn't see it rotate. But as you can see, it's dropped down now. I don't know whether that's the rubber rotating or what, but see how it works. Hoping I could, that would be bonded to that and that I could spin it, but it's clearly not bonded. It spins too easy. I was hoping that it would resist my downward pressure. So far, I don't see any evidence of it budging. So I will shut the camera off again and work on it some more. So I've got the air hammer out with the hammer head on it. I'm going to try that. I really don't believe this is going to do much, but it's a tool I have, so might as well try it. guess I'm going to keep hitting it with blaster and then keep hitting it with the hammer. So I've been beating on this thing for a couple hours with the impact wrench and the hammer. I finally decided that I was considering the heim joint type things anyways. So I hope you can see this on here. I cut a groove in there with my die grinder. And then I took my impact chisel and I opened it up some. Then I flipped it up actually on this side and cut into this side. Now I'm going to put a different angle so I can get closer to getting that off. Cut it some more and then hit it with the chisel. And really all I'm hoping to do is to get down it to where I get to the sleeve so that I can cut it or somehow get it off of that shock. So both ends of this are the same, and at least I think they are. Look to be the same. So this is what you're fighting with over there. Let's see if I can get a good shot at it. See that big sleeve there? That's inside. This here is inside this end. And that's rusted on. As you can see, it almost looks like this is one piece, but as you can see on the other side, it isn't. It's part of this. So, you see how rusted that is on there? You can't even tell where the seam is. And I think the other side is just about the same. Let's see if I can throw some light on it. So, pretty much the same. So what I'm going to do now is try to get my impact hammer with the chisel on that, in that little groove there, and try to turn it. If I can get it to turn, the shock mount will come out. So that's still not the best situation because that's at an awkward angle to get the air chisel in there. But we're going to see what we can accomplish here. I do have an oxyacetylene torch, but I don't really want to heat that on. Now if you heat it up, that will break it loose, but I really don't want to heat that shock mount because heating it and cooling it changes the mechanical properties of the steel, and it may weaken it. I don't want that to happen because that's an integral part of the suspension. So it turned a little bit, and all it did was make it harder to reach. Some more. Let's see what happens now if I tap it with the hammer, now that it's turned. Still not doing much of anything. We'll be able to get some blaster down inside that groove now. That would likely help. Also, you can get blaster between the spindle here and the bushing that's still left in there. So I'm going to let that soak for a few seconds and hit it with the chisel from the other side if I can. If not, maybe I can get channel locks or vice grips or something on it. Maybe I can spin it that way. I'm going to try to take this jack stand out of my way. It's going to make the trailing arm bounce more, but I might be able to get a chisel in there better with it off. awkward angle. It has moved some more, so maybe a hammer will help now. I think it's just destroying the pipe cap now. I have a feeling I'm going to have to go on each side of the ramp several times to get that to spin freely, so I'm going to shut the camera off and start doing that. So I finally got it to move enough, and it only took one more time, so I haven't been doing this long. But I was able to get my chisel between the spindle here and the shock mount, and it drew it out some. So as you can see, it's a little bit loose now. See if I get it. I don't know if that's actually moving it out any, or whether that's just moving the cap down on the shock mount bolt. No, I think that's just destroying the shock mount bolt. And that's what happens when your hose breaks on your air system. I'm going to try now pounding that out with the brass drift. If the pipe cap won't work anymore. It actually figured out some. So I'll keep moving the pipe cap out just a little bit, so I have as much thread on it as I can, and pound it in. That's just the pipe cap moving. I have destroyed both of those, by the way, that I bought. I'm glad I bought two. This one is just now failing, but I'm kind of got it out for the most part. I have a better drift that's a blunt, more blunt end. I'm going to get that. Less likely to slip off of the shock mount bolt. Still tough. I'm flush with the spindle mount here, so now I have to go with the smaller one so it'll push that bolt through. At last. So as I always say, I show you the good, the bad, and the ugly. That was bad. Bordering on ugly if I wasn't seriously thinking about going to the Heim joint strut rods. Anyway, so I wasn't too upset about having to cut that off. I didn't want to have to cut the shock mount off. That's the second one of those hoses that has failed me in the last 2 days. The first one was just a small leak. This and the fitting came off. What I'm doing now is prying that bushing out of there. It's actually a bushing within a sleeve. There's the bushing inside, and then this sleeve was split, and when I was hitting this with the air chisel, it was spinning. I don't know whether it was spinning the sleeve or the whole thing. At any rate, that's what you're fighting with. And if I can find where I set that shock mount, I've been putting blaster on this for hours. Not much of it was getting through to where the bushing is, so that's why they're so hard to get out of there. So I've cleaned up the shock mount, and before I put it back together, well, I finished cleaning it up, but this is the part that was stuck in there. And as I'm assembling it, what I am going to do is I'm going to put some wheel bearing grease, similar to this, probably this since it's what I have. This is synthetic. This stuff is really thick, and unlike oil, it won't evaporate or otherwise drain off, get rinsed off with water or whatever. This stuff really sticks, and the next person that has to take it off, it'll come right off for them.